And here is 1500 points of Eldar, as described by Daryl, just over my left shoulder here.
Okay. So starting over here, we have my fire prism. It's got a shuriken cannon underneath, and it also has the crystal matrix to allow it to move and shoot heavy weapons with no penalties. Just behind that, we've got the Hemlock Wraith Fighter, and that is of course a psychic pilot, so we'll see how that does. In front of that I've got two Wraith Lords. As you can see, they're both armed slightly differently.
Yep.
One's got a glow glaive with a bright lance on the shoulder, and the other's got a scatter laser on the shoulder and a bright lance. Both have a shuriken catapult and a flamer on each arm. Then in front of that is my first HQ, which is the Avatar of Cain. My four-door model, hopefully it does well.
Just about to enter the Olympics for the spear throw.
Indeed. And then next I have some Dire Avengers, only 5 of them, and they're going to be in the Falcon that's
just over here. Yep.
And the Falcon has a scatter laser turret with, of course, the pulse cannon on top. And then behind them we have some Wind Rider jet bikes. They've all got shuriken cannons. And then in front of them is a Farseer Windrunner with a sling spear.
So is that a patrol and a spearhead, is that right? Or
that is just a spearhead.
Spearhead attachment.
You can take all of that within the spearhead. So
fine, lovely.
Giving me a total of 4 command points.
Excellent. Do you have any Warlord traits, or do you want to roll that in a minute?
We'll roll those in a minute.
Fine, in that case, that's 1500 points of Eldar. I will just state that this is this isn't going to be the latest Eldar codex when this video goes out. We will probably be having another game with a similar list to sort of test out the differences between the two codexes and the index. So we'll now move over to see what I've bought for my Orks. And here is my 1500 points of Orks. So it's going to be a battalion attachment, that's all there is. So give me an extra 3 command points for a total of 6. Down here at the front here we have 2 HQs on the left. We have a War Boss with Power Claw and Custom Shooter, and a Big Mech with custom, Combi Scorcher I should say. Joining them on the right over here is a Pain Boy in the Elite section. He has a Kill Saw and the Syringe. For troop choices over here we have, it's about 60 boys. I had a few extra points left over for the back squad there, so they got 3 extra boys. So it should be 63 boys in there. There's a boss knob in each. The one on the right here has Power Claw. We have a Power Claw here. The one at the front here has a big chopper. There's also in each squad 2 big shooters. Moving over to some heavy choice, we have 1 selection of Death Dreads here. So they are all armed as they are shown. So over here we have one with 4 Power Claws. We have 2 Power Claws, a rocket launcher and a Scorcher. And then at the back here we have 2 Power Claws and 2 big shooters. And then finally on the left over here we have a Morkonaut with the custom force field upgrade. So that is my 1500 points of Orks. We'll do the Warlord traits and stuff in a minute. So we'll now move on to the mission and deployment. Okay, so just to run through the explanation of this mission. As you can see, the board's looking pretty good. We have a Ork gun pile down here, but we'll come to that in a minute. Down here, this is what we drew in the open war deck. So we've got deployment here. We're going to look at it this way around because actually the way we decided to do it was that way. So at the moment, Daryl is over in that corner over there, and I am over in this corner, which actually worked out quite nicely, obviously. The mission is invasion. So we've both rolled off. We put in an objective as described on that card there, and basically if any player immediately controls both, they immediately win the game at the end of their opponent's turn, obviously. Then restoratives here, which is the twist. Each player may pick a friendly unit at the start of their turn, and the unit regains D3 lost wounds. So that's pretty nice. So moving on to where the objectives are. Over here, my one is sitting in this area, and over this side of the board, we have one sitting down here. As you can see, this is a little battlefield. It's a slightly orc infested area, which probably used to belong to the Imperium, judging by some of the ruins. Got kind of a stomper being built here and being pumped full of Promethium, I'm presuming, which is kind of an orc tactic. Likewise over here, they've decided to scavenge as much stuff as they could from the battlefield and dump it here and pump Promethium underneath it. So interesting orc tactics. But anyway, we're going to get started with the deployment, and we'll be back once both armies are deployed, and then we'll get on with the game. Okay, so deployment has been done. Daryl finished deploying first, so in a minute we're going to roll off to show you the battlefield first. So over here the orcs have hugged this corner as expected because they want to protect their big bundle of loot over here. The Eldar have kept pretty tight on this side of the board, just in these ruins here. And the flyer over there, and obviously over here, currently in the Falcon, are the Avengers. Not the real Avengers, the dire Avengers. So moving on over to this side again, Orks are all over here, and we're now going to roll off to see who goes first. So we're going to do that just down here. So Daryl gets +1 because he finished first. So Orks will be going first. No, you won't because it's a draw. So let's re-roll that. Just math not working. So Daryl's definitely going first. So we'll be back shortly with the Xenos Eldar turn 1. Although before we do start, I might seize on a 6. No, so we will be back with the Eldar turn 1. So here we are, Eldar turn 1, and over here you can see the bikes have moved up down this flank. They can move very quickly because of their advanced rules. The Hemlock Wraith Fighters decided to drive on forward here to get into range of the boys and various other units down here. Moving over to this side of the board, if you scoot on over this side, we have had the Wraith Knights move forward, or the, yeah, it's Wraith Knights, isn't it? Sorry, Wraith Lords, sorry, pardon me. Wraith Lords move forward along with the Avatar. And then over here, the Falcon has stayed put, however, sorry, not the Falcon, the Fire Prism has stayed put. The Falcons have moved forward. It's been a while since I've played against Eldar, so bear with me if I get some of these names wrong. I will get them right by the end of the video. So that's all moved. We'll now move on into the psychic and shooting phases and see what happens. Okay, so at the start of turn 1 psychic and shooting, there was some psychic shenanigans done, obviously, down here. Guide was cast onto the bikes, and then Doom was cast onto the Orc unit over here that they eventually shot at, taking out 4 people. We also had the Hemlock Wraith Fighter fire down at this Death Dread and take off 2 wounds with its psychic shenanigans. And then over here, the Morkanaut has taken quite a battering of 8 wounds from all of the heavy weapons in this area over here. So, I don't believe there's any assault, is there, Daryl? No assault. So we'll now move on into the Orcs turn 1. Okay, so as we enter Orcs turn 1, the movement phase down here, all the boys moved up. We've got some abysmal advance rolls. We've got a 1 for this squad and a 1 for this squad. Just slightly better with the Walkers. This Walker's managed to move up a reasonable amount. So has this one here. The Death Dread's just sneaking underneath the Wraith Fighter there. And this one has just brought up behind the Morkanaut. I didn't advance the Morkanaut because I want to shoot. Plus, I also wanted to make sure he was in range of the mech. So I had to get the mech out first and then move him up so he was ready to put more wounds back on him. As you can see there, he's actually on 14 wounds now. That's because of the twist on this mission. Gives a D3 heal to any unit on the board. And he got 3 extra wounds back from that and then 1 from the mech. So actually he's almost back up to full strength, which is really nice. Well, for me anyway. Over here, these boys have stayed back because they're definitely more interested in what's going on in this looting area than what's going on in the battlefield. And also the Pain Boy is with them to just make sure no one dies too badly. So that's the end of movement. We'll now move on into the shooting phase and see what happens. So as the Gorkanaut spun up all its weapons, he decided to fire them all at this Wraith Lord here and managed to take off a wound in the end. So not brilliant. I haven't really got anything else I can shoot, sadly. So that's all my shooting. Obviously I advanced everything else, so nothing in charge range just yet. We'll now move on into Eldar turn 2 and see what the Eldar do. So at the start of the movement phase for Eldar turn 2, the fighter here zoomed over to this side of the board. As we pan up here, we can see that the middle of the board's about to get quite messy as 3 of the Eldar units pile in towards the Morkanaut there. He's looking a bit worried, I think, although he's probably a bit too mad to be that scared. Everything else has pretty much stayed still, I believe, so because I think we're looking for that non-heavy downfall for moving with heavy weapons, and also over here I think they want to unload into this Death Dread that's higher, just coming towards them right now. They better hope they get all those shots in pretty good, because it could be quite messy for them. So that's the end of the movement phase for Eldar. We'll now move on into their shooting and psychic, or psychic and shooting. So as we roll on past the psychic and shooting for Eldar, over here the psychic phase was done again over here. There was some doom cast on the now disappeared Death Dread. However, it did take a lot of firepower taking down. All of the bikes here shot in, and then also everything over here in desperation because they realised that it would have, getting into combat next turn with the bikes, all shot that way just to make sure it was finished off. So, yep, that is now gone. In the middle here, everything shot into the Morkanaut, unfortunately only doing 1 wound in the end. The Avatar of Cain had a pretty bad spear throw as well. I think it shot over his shoulder and landed behind him some ways, but he's going to go and collect it in a bit, probably by going through him. The Wraithfighter over here managed to take out an Orc boy in the end. Not that brilliant, but to be fair, getting rid of that Death Dread over there was probably the most useful thing out of the phase, I think, just to make sure that it doesn't get in combat with the next turn. So that's the end of the shooting phase. I think we've got some assault coming on here in the middle. So let's see what happens. Okay, so as we end the fighting phase for turn 2 for Eldar, quite an interesting thing happening here in the middle. Overwatch was pretty crummy. I did manage to take, I think, no, I didn't even take a wound off, did I? No, so nothing happened there. However, as we pan around here, you'll see on the back of the Morkanaut, he is on 1 wound. Now, the Avatar of Cain managed to do 12 wounds to him, which because he was on 13 to start with. So Daryl was being pretty confident when the Wraith Lord thought, I'm just going to smack him with my sword. However, apparently he couldn't wound.
No, he couldn't hit at first.
He missed twice, he got hit through, and then couldn't wound with that attack. So Morkanaut feeling pretty lucky, and obviously with the twist in this game being the restorative measures, he might cut a few wounds back next turn, hopefully. So, yeah, other than that, there was no other combats going on, so we'll now move on into Orks turn 2. Okay, so as turn 2 movement for Orks for ends. Over here we have a lot of movement in the middle here because the boys are all trying to get in range for some form of charge in the middle here, trying to deal with a mass amount of walkers. So the war boss has put himself in the middle, so he's trying to give as much bonus to charges as he can. This squad managed to get a good run advance roll here, so they're positioned quite nicely trying to sneak in a few attacks against the Wraith Lord there. This other Death Dread decided that he wants to avenge the other Death Dread's life by charging these guys. I don't know if that's going to work out well for him. We'll see shortly if he can survive Overwatch. There's a lot of shots going to pile into him. The Morkanaut managed to regain 1 wound. However, we're now going to roll for the Big Mech's roll, so another D3. No, another 1. So he'll be back on 3 wounds in a second. We'll now move on to the shooting phase and see if we can get any shots off if required. And we'll join you again in a second. So at the end of turn 2 shooting for Orks, not an awful lot happened. Had some big shooters and the weapons off this Death Dread far up at the flyer here doing nothing. And then over this side we had the Orks big shooters here and also the Death Dread's big shooters all fire into this squad here, managed to take off 1 wound. So not too impressive, however I wasn't really expecting much, so better than nothing. So we'll now move on into the assault phase. So we've got a couple of assaults to go off here and hopefully we can save the Morkanaut. So turn 2 Orks assault, and over here the Death Dread managed to finish off these guys, but it was actually a morale test that killed the final guy. So unfortunately you can't follow up into the Farseer, probably Farseer feeling rather lucky about that. Over here the Orc boys here did a fantastic job of getting in and actually finishing off the Wraith Lord. However, as you can see, there's a rather big gap here because a spear went through the stomach of the Morkanaut, went up to his head and basically got ripped apart into many pieces. However, it didn't explode, luckily, so he didn't have to suffer the D6 mortal wounds all round. So that's not too bad. The boys over here managed to charge. I think we took a wound off him in the end. Nothing much, though.
Indeed, he's down to 5. So
he's down to 5 wounds, the Avatar. So that's the end of turn 2 for Orks. We'll now move on to turn 3 for Eldar and see how the game progresses. As we roll on to turn 3 for Eldar, the Wraith Fighter here has flown up onto the gun pile. Obviously, I don't think he's on it, he's probably flying above it. Hope he doesn't go up underneath him. Into the central part of the battlefield here, the Avatar has backed off from the big mob of boys, possibly to open them up to a lot of shooting attacks in a minute from various locations in this area of the board. I think there's a lot of firepower about to come piling into them, so I wouldn't expect them to be many of them left after that round of shooting. Also, the Farseer over here has backed completely off the Death Dread, not confident it can take off the 6 wounds it has left. after it saw it rip apart its units. So we'll now move on into the psychic and shooting phase and see what the Eldar can pull out the bag. So as we roll out of the turn 3 phase for shooting and psychic for Eldar over here, the Farseer did put guide onto the Dire Avengers, which was quite helpful in helping the decimation of this squad under the ruins over there. So they're down to 3 guys, I think, now. So, and that's included the boss knob, so it's just not too good for them. It also contributed from this firing over here. It took this down to 1 wound. Got very unlucky with the fire prism over here trying to finish it off, because obviously with the twist here, this could potentially get a few wounds back and become a little bit more useful again. We shall see. Other shooting over here, the Wraithfighter also, I think, assisted in taking that down, most of the wounds actually. I think, yeah. And over here, I think a boy was lost from a smite just as it flew past. It sort of did a cheeky little smite down them. So that is the end of the shooting and psychic. We'll now move on into combat, because I think there's a couple of charges that Daryl wants to do. So we'll see what happens. Okay, so at the end of turn 3 assault, a slightly amusing thing happened here. The Wraithlord strode in all confident, missed with 2 attacks and then didn't wound with the other one, and then an Orc chopper managed to take a wound off the Lord. So yeah, he's probably not too impressed with that. But we'll now move on into turn 3 for Orcs and see what happens. So as turn 3 movement for Orcs ends over here, we've had a big movement forward. We've got a good advance roll for the Orc boys here, who are going to try and surround the Avatar and hopefully bring him down with the sheer number of chopper attacks. We shall see. With a good turn of fortune here, the Death Dread restored another 3 wounds from the twist option in the gameplay. However, I'm now going to roll for the mech as well. And he gets back another 2. So he's now on 6 wounds, which is good. So he's now a bit more useful again. And obviously the mech has moved in there as well. Elsewhere on the board over here, this Death Dread is chasing his quarry down. He's decided that the Farseer is his target. So he's moving around this way again, just to keep it moving around the board. However, I don't know if it's going to last that long, depending on the amount of firepower coming from that Falcon fire prism. So that's the end of movement. We'll now move on into the shooting phase and see what happens. So as we end turn 3 shooting for the Orcs over here, we've managed to take 2 wounds off the Avatar with the big shooters in this squad down here. All the Sluggers did fire in but didn't do anything. Also, the Scorcher fired in and didn't do anything to him over here. The big shooters off this Death Dread fired at the Farseer. However, he managed to avoid all damage. No other shots were fired apart from on this side of the board. The 2 big shooters here fired up at the Flyer and did nada. So that is all the shooting. When I head on to Orcs turn 3 assault and see if they can take out maybe one of these units. Maybe, who knows. So in turn 3, as this melee plays out down here, quite a successful turn for the boys here. Managed to take the Avatar down to 2. Didn't quite manage to finish him off, and he did retaliate a little bit with, I think, killing 2 boys off in the end.
I think it was 4.
Oh no, it was 4. Sorry, pardon me.
Quite a few.
Yeah. And down here, the boss knob here managed to take off a wound, I think, from the Wraith Lord, and also the Death Dread did a couple as well. But
yeah, that was on 9. It's lost 6 in total.
It's lost 6 in total, so not too bad. Over here, Warboss wasn't quite able to get in. Hopefully, trying to get involved. He has been trying, just not quite in range. So that's the end of that combat phase. We'll now move on into Eldar turn 4. So as turn 4 movement ends for the Eldar, there's been a general consensus to move back and try and get as many shots in to this boys squad here. Obviously they're getting quite close to the objective over here now. So the Avatar moved out, the Wraith Lord moved out, so everything is now fair game for shooting in that area. Over this way, the Wraith Fighter decided to jump over here and just do another pivot at the end to get himself lined up for probably the end game, I have a suspicion, to try and stop them getting this objective if it does go that far. So that's the end of turn 4 movement for Eldar. We'll now move on to the psychic and shooting phases and see what pans out. So turn 4 shooting and psychic for Eldar. A few things have happened. Over here, this squad has been completely obliterated down to, I think, 3 there again. From a lot of shooting attacks, to be fair. A lot went into them.
It's mostly morale.
Morale took an additional 5 off on top of the 5 or 6 that were killed. Over here, the Death Dread is down to 1 wound again, somehow managing to escape from the very poor shooting from the fire prism at the end, I think.
It's not performed well.
Not done too good. Elsewhere, over here, we had a couple of boys sniped off here from the Hemlock over here. However, we did get a couple of saves from the Pain Boy, just dragging him back into order. But other than that, nothing else. So we'll now move on into Orcs turn 4, because there is no assaults to go on here. And we'll see what happens. So turn 4 movement for Orcs here, and this Death Dread has moved towards this end of the board now, trying to get in there, because obviously that Falcon is sitting on the objective, so he wants to take him off there. This boy squad being invigorated by his war bosses, or their war bosses, a massive charge up the field. They really want to try and at least get into the Dire Avengers, I think. The Death Dread, again, recovered 3 runes from the twist on the battle, and now the again, I'm going to roll on camera the Big Mech's recovery, and he gets back another 2, so he's back up to 6 again for the 2nd time running. I'll alter that shortly. Around here, this other 2-man boy squad has moved around the side here to try and get in on the action. Hopefully, we'll get some good charges off towards the end of this game, but we'll now move on to the shooting phase, because there is a couple of bits of shooting we can do, and see what happens. So back in the centre here again, the Death Dread recovers another 2 wounds, obviously from the previous turn, on 6. Also over here, everything shot at the Wraith Lord and managed to take 1 wound off in the end, although Daryl's disputing the fact that I've got so few boys, it was very lucky. I'm saying boy stuff works good. In the middle here we have this squad of boys who shot at the Avatar but didn't do anything, and over here the Death Dread's 2 big shooters shot at the Falcon but didn't manage to take any wounds off. We were just discussing the technology of the Orcs versus the technology of the Eldar, and apparently, you know, I think because it's so old, the Eldar technology, a lot of stuff goes wrong with it, but apparently my technology is not any better. I disagree. You know?
All I'm saying is meticulously kept Wraith Bone, can't hit that. You can fill in the blank.
Yeah, and then so anyway, that's the shooting phase. We'll now move on to the combat phase. We've got quite a bit of combat coming this turn, hopefully, if we get the charges off, and let's see what happens. Okay, so that was a bit of a mess in turn 4 assault for Orcs, because I made a small mistake in the fact that I didn't attack with my war boss first in the Avatar, which I managed to get a charge off, so the intervening stratagem was played and the Avatar managed to kill him very, very painfully with about 400 wounds. However, this boss knob has managed to hang on and killing 3 of the Dire Avengers. And over here, we did manage to finish off the Wraith Lord. However, the Death Dread's still sitting on, I think, 6 wounds at the moment, so hopefully that'll be enough to hold on for another turn. And over here, this Death Dread didn't make his charge, so unfortunately not much happened there. So we're now moving on into turn 5 for Eldar, and let's see what happens. So turn 5 for Eldar movement, and all that was moved was the Hemlock here, who's flown up, and as unfortunately I think the mech has caused enough annoyance with his repairing abilities, so he might be about to meet his doom to a horrible smite if he can get enough wounds on him. So that's the end of movement. We'll now move on into the shooting phase. Okay, so at the end of Eldar turn 5, Daryl had quite a good shooting phase over here. Managed to take out pretty much everything in this area here. What we've decided to do is, because we're a bit short on time and it's my turn 5 now, we probably weren't going to go past turn 5 anyway. Because the boys squad over here and the Pain Boy there, it's unlikely that it's going to happen, but I mean, we know it is theoretically possible, but we're going to decide to call it there and call it a draw anyway. So, Daryl, thank you very much for the game.
Yeah, good game.
Enjoy yourself.
It was hard fought in the end.
Yes.
Had its highs and its lows.
Yeah, it had a lot of amusing moments in it as well. So it's actually quite nice to end on a draw anyway, I think. Just because, yeah, I think it was a good game either way. I think if the Orcs had got in here, I think that would have changed the outcome slightly, but probably not. I don't think I would have actually been able to weather the fire either way. So
it was close at certain points. Then that middle bit, when it started to turn in the Orcs' favour, I did get very worried. But just that intervention of the war boss, I think, helped a huge amount.
Yes. So that's obviously the last game that will be on the channel for Eldar in this Index edition. Any passing comments on the last game that you've had with them now? Obviously, I know you didn't play too many of the Index, but...
No, this is where I confess, I wasn't a huge fan of the Eldar Index. I felt like a lot of the fluff elements that kind of made the Eldar what they are were kind of stripped from it. So I'm hoping to see that in the next codex. Maybe a few tweaks on the avatar. He's good, but I don't think he's worth 250
No, it's quite a pricey chat. But, you know, we'll see what the new codex holds. But like I said, we're actually going to hopefully have another game this week as well. And then get the kind of rematch game out with the new Eldar Codex versus the Index Orcs. Still waiting on that Codex for the Orcs, but I'm sure it will turn up eventually. I quite enjoy playing the Orcs again today. Lots of good combat fun. So yeah, as usual, this is Tom from BlackToad Studio. And thank you very much for watching, and we'll speak soon.